All right, we're all set. All right, good evening. This is the December 20th, 2012 special Rhinebeck Town Board meeting. It's actually not a special meeting. We typically have our second meeting of the month, which is our business meeting, on the fourth Monday of the month, but that ends up on New Year's Eve, so we've decided to move it to tonight, the 20th, and it's necessary to have this last meeting of the year because we have to approve some funding and some financial matters and move some money typically at the end of the year to help with our bookkeeping protocol. So, anyways, we'll start with the pledge. There's no Girl Scouts here, but we'll start.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, so just for announcements, the town hall will be closed on December 24th, and that's Christmas Eve. We have, anybody else on announcements?
The winter solstice is on tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, down at the dock.
The bonfire?
Yeah.
Very cool.
I hauled wood down there today, so. Yeah.
Coincides with the end of the world.
Yeah.
All right, well, last time we said if you're not huddling in your basement, go down to this. So whatever you want, Heinz.
All right. Anything else? Okay. We just have to approve the prior minutes of December 10th, 2012 on regular meetings. So motion and second to approve the December 10th, 2012 town board minutes.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Tonight we have a presentation from an insurance proposal from Greg and Adam Reckow from Reckow Fraley Insurance. And if you guys are ready to, this follows up with our, what was that company, Stamp?
NYMAR, New York,
yeah, but
municipal from the Spain agency.
Spain, yeah. Spain was did a presentation last month, and we are following up with a second presentation.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity to come and speak with you this evening. I'm going to be very respectful of your time. Like you guys, I serve on boards, and I know what it's like to get through an agenda. Elizabeth, I believe Kathy emailed you our full proposal. Is that correct? Okay.
We all have the full proposal.
You all have,
well.
good, fine. All right, that's what I was hoping you'd say. I am in a little bit of an awkward position this evening in that, like the Putnam County agent that was here last month, I am an independent agent. And as an independent agent, we represent multiple companies. One of the companies that we have in the past represented, it's not really a company, one of the insurance carriers that we represented in the past is NYMAR. In fact, I am the agent for Tivoli's Insurance, which is with NYMAR. And we've been servicing that since the child mayor invited us in there, Mark Molinaro, because Jack Gilfeather, as you probably know, a good friend of ours, was on the NYMAR board for many years, and he told Mark, this is what you need to have. So we never quoted anything else for Tivoli. However, when we had the opportunity to quote the insurance for the village and the town of Rhinebeck, we have supplied multiple quotes with multiple companies. So my point is, my presentation tonight, I can sum up. I'm going to ask Adam in a minute to talk about a few details. I can sum it up as far as comparing the two companies with, I represent them both. And I think that if I were to criticize one and to the benefit of the other, it would not be appropriate. There are pluses and minuses to both policies. For the right risk, they are acceptable policies and carriers. So I'm not going to get into a whole lot of if it was a carrier that I didn't represent, I would probably be more strident in pointing out some weaknesses. So I'm going to ask Adam to talk to you a little bit about some some differences between the two policies that are not necessarily a criticism, but you folks as board members got the opportunity to see where there were differences in the policies in your meeting in November. Like any story, there's always two sides. Adam, do you want to take just a couple of minutes and then I'll summarize?
Good afternoon or evening, everybody. I'm Adam Rakow from Fraley and Rakow Insurance. What I'm going to talk about quick, as a resident, taxpayer, citizen of Rhinebeck, I understand and appreciate your fiduciary responsibility and your feeling that.
Could you just move around the
Yeah.
camera?
Oh.
You should, yeah.
It's my better side.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, I appreciate your understanding and your need for the fiduciary responsibility of the town, and things like when you order water from a supplier, or you buy dry goods, or you get toner for your copier, you got to drive that down to the bottom nickel without question. So from the angle of fiduciary responsibility for insurance, I don't necessarily believe that the best insurance is always the least expensive insurance you're going to buy. I think your fiduciary responsibility to the town is protection. Insurance is a complex financial instrument that is there in place so that if something terrible happens, we don't go bankrupt. The taxpayers aren't liable for huge damages levied against the town by an attorney or by a court of law. So I think when we start talking about fiduciary responsibility here, it's not the same as the least expensive. I think the fiduciary responsibility is looking at whether or not removing $5, $10, $20 million worth of liability coverage from 43 employees, 9 locations, 21 buildings, 21 vehicles, 64 road miles, 178 vacant acres of property, a riverfront, and a swimming pool might not be necessarily living up to your fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of Rhinebeck. At $1.65 or $1.70 savings per resident, I'm not sure that that's necessarily the best idea. So I think a better policy for perhaps more premium may satisfy that responsibility that you guys take to heart, and we do it as a tax-paying citizen. I do appreciate that because taxes are high on everybody, and it is a difficult decision always to make. Obviously, NYMER and Selective are different, like Greg had alluded to. There are pluses and minuses in each. The most glaring difference, we saw that the differences that were provided by the gentleman from Spain, and some of them were definitely something to think about. Some of them were just eyewash. The one that I didn't see on there, which I was kind of surprised when I reviewed it, from the perspective of NYMER, and I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to get too deep into it, an administrative hearing is not covered at all on a NYMER policy. An administrative hearing, and that is from a defense standpoint, if you have to hire your own attorney or pay your town attorney to be here to defend the town. It is also not covered if there is a judgment levied by the judge from the administrative hearing level. An administrative hearing, typically somebody brings a suit, or doesn't bring a suit, but comes to the town and presents a complaint that they've been discriminated against, sex, breed, race, color, any of that kind of stuff, whether it's an employee that feels they were sexually harassed or a resident of the town that feels they didn't get a variance or something like that. If that happens, which I understand is relatively frequent in the procedures within a town, the person may not sue, but they bring an action. That is a completely uncovered loss scenario by the town. So if you have a disgruntled employee that feels they were sexually harassed wherever, whether it's the town garage or the town hall, and they bring a complaint to the town, and the judge decides that's worth $100,000, $200,000, $10,000, whatever, you're not defended, and you're paying it out of pocket. That is a huge difference between the NYMER policy and the selective policy. An administrative hearing triggers the selective policy. And I think in today's day and age of race sensitivity and sexual discrimination, things like that, that's not something that can be looked on lightly, and I believe that the town would consider that in a huge shortfall in coverage. So again, we're not bashing NYMER because we've sold it, and we do believe that the policies are good, each stand on their own merits, but there's differences, and I think that's one that should be on the comparison list. One of the other ones that was I find somewhat interesting on the comparison list is the pollution. You know, NYMER has some pollution policy, Selective has some pollution policy, some pollution coverage on the policy. Neither are full-blown pollution policies. When I sit back after servicing the town's insurance for the last 10 or 12 years, whatever it's been that I've been involved in the town's insurance, my opinion is your landfill is probably your single largest pollution exposure. It's not covered by the pollution in the NYMER policy. The garbage, when it's going from wherever it's collected to the spot, to the landfill, it is covered. But once it's in that landfill, if you have a leak in the landfill, which to me is your largest exposure to pollution, you're not going to have coverage there for that anyway. It is also not covered by the umbrella, so you've got your minimum $1 million limit on the NYMER policy, and then after that, it's kind of out of pocket. Those are the two probably biggest things I see. They brought up the land use issue, which is again diminishing value or whatever. You change the zoning, and now my 100 acres is worth $1,000 an acre, and it used to be worth $10,000 an acre. The gentleman from NYMER claimed it's not covered on the selected policy. It is not covered on the selected policy if there's no monetary ask within the suit that's brought against the town. I don't know too many lawyers who don't ask for money in some way, shape, or form on every lawsuit that's brought against.
So are you saying we can collect from Selective on this? We have a $257,000 attorney's bill.
I'm not in the claims. I'm telling you the policy would react whether or not there would be coverage in place. They would determine whether or not there's coverage.
So
You were told the policy would not react to a lawsuit. If there is a limited amount of coverage within it for things like that.
Right, I'm just saying, one of our biggest expenses is that we have a $257,000 legal fees.
Right.
We're pursuing a lawsuit with the state against Greenway to try and recover the money.
We could absolutely present it to Selective, without a question. Elizabeth, I can't make a determination on whether or not the coverage is gonna be there, but absolutely, you would be remiss not to submit something like that to your insurance company. I mean, that's what we're here for.
The other thing is, we do have an issue with our landfill, which maybe, we should talk to.
You wanna finish?
Yeah.
Wait, I thought we checked on the land use and we were told we weren't covered.
I didn't check,
I thought somebody on the board checked.
no.
Okay, well, we'll have to go back and look.
Oh, yeah, wouldn't that be good? I thought we were told by Spain that we would be covered for that,
I don't know.
that we would have been
Well,
covered for that.
My recollection, because I asked during the budget workshops, and somebody was gonna check, and I thought somebody came back and said, we aren't covered for zoning, for land use types of things under selective.
I'm talking about the landfill.
Yeah, I'm talking about.
You're talking about the land
I'm
use.
talking about the lawsuits. That's what I'm talking about, and I thought we were told we weren't,
Do
we
you
had no
think
coverage
Joe
for
might
it.
have checked?
I don't know who.
I don't know.
Right. We could talk about that, Bruce, or you guys can always give us a buzz and talk to us about that. And again, that's those couple of things. The two big ones, the comparison of the hearing, the administrative hearing coverage, I think is enormous, and I don't think it's something that can be looked at lightly. And the fiduciary responsibility piece. Greg?
You done?
Yeah, I'm pretty much wound up.
I think that you may have this. If you don't have it in this form, you certainly have this information.
Adam, what'd you say, it was land use non-monetary?
Yeah,
If no-
if there's no monetary ask in the suit, that's where Selective would typically fall short. If their lawsuit includes
Use, or something like that?
includes like, they sue you for however many, just throw $1,000 on it, they sue for $1,000, then potentially the policy is triggered. Where
So
if
if there's
it's
non-mon-
just to reverse the zoning, it's not something that they're gonna respond to.
Okay.
That's it,
Okay.
Bruce,
That's right.
the non-monetary.
A non-monetary suit is not gonna be responded to.
The suit needs to have a monetary claim of actual damage.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
Most attorneys will throw some damages on so they.
Did we have that in
No,
there?
they just wanted changed.
Yeah, there was no,
Okay, so we had two major suits that didn't make monetary claims.
Okay. And you're being told that that would be covered?
Well, we were told that it wasn't covered by selective.
No, but that NYMER would cover it? I'm asking.
No,
NYMER- Oh, all right.
We don't know that.
Yeah, that's probably true then, Bruce.
Okay.
Okay, what I gave you, and this is gonna be my summary, is going back to my original point and Adam's original point. In a dollars and cents, I think it's pretty clear, and again, I'm not going to say that the NYMER policy is not a good policy. It is a good policy. The two times that the town hired an outside consultant to evaluate your insurance and to evaluate the proposals that you were sent, in both instances, suggested Selective because of the strength of the contract and premiums.
When was that, Greg, and do you know who that
2010
consultant
was Ralph Ellis with the
Uh-huh.
Ellis Agency in Poughkeepsie, and honestly, Gina, I don't remember, it was several years before that. 2010 was the
2009
second
and
time?
2010.
Okay.
Okay. And by the way, that's where the limits came from, was the recommendation of Ralph Ellis. We had, I believe, lower limits if you look back, and the board accepted the recommendation of the independent consultant to have 15, 30 as your liability limits. I looked at my records, and we had solicited quotes from NYMER in 1999, 2003, 2005. They declined in 2007 because they said they spin their wheels and can never be competitive. In 2010, we got a quote for them, and they were not competitive. And in 2011, I contacted Spain Agency to ask if we could work together to get you a quote, and they never returned my phone call. I took a while to try and analyze, and believe it or not, I would wish you would bear with me for 1 minute and look at the umbrella quotes, because this goes to the heart of our discussion. To move from 5 million, 10 million with NYMER, I've done this and I filled it in the between, is 5,500 additional premium dollars. To move that 5 million with Selective is 2,588 additional dollars.
I'm sorry, what, I don't.
Right in here, Elizabeth, I just filled it in on my own. To move from that premium to that premium, the delta is $5,500. To add 5 million more of coverage to Selective is $2,588. To add 5 million more to NYMER is $8,000 to get it up to 1525. Excuse me, to get it up to 1525. My point being, the reason NYMER was not competitive was because they were asked to quote against 15 million, 30 million. And when they do that, they are not competitive. The reason they do that is because, like all insurance carriers, for those types of limits, they go to reinsurance. The reinsurance is priced based on the risk the reinsurance carrier thinks they have by making that money available to the carriers. If you look at what Selective costs to raise their limits and look at what NYMER costs, it speaks to responsibility. I sit on the board of HealthQuest, $750 million organization. I also sit on the board of a private insurance captive, offshore captive to supply medical malpractice. I also was very familiar with CRM. My point is, if you know what CRM was, there were many local business people who joined a trust, which is not a reciprocal, but a reciprocal is an accessible policy. And buy insurance from Selective, your risk is done. They accept if they made a mistake on rates, and they accept all responsibility, and they are protected by the state if they were wrong and cannot meet their responsibilities. A trust and a reciprocal and a captive are on their own. They can assess their policyholders anytime into the future if their rates were inadequate or if there were incidents that occurred, and I think there have been incidents in the news lately, where we all said that could never happen here, that can demonstrate what horrible things can happen. HealthQuest is alarmed by a physician locally who was performing illegal or inadequate surgeries. We will have to come up with millions of dollars in lawsuits. HealthQuest is on the hook for about $6 million assessed to them by New York State because CRM Trust, and that's a trust, not a reciprocal. Please, I'm not mixing apples and oranges here. But the point is, when you get into a trust or a reciprocal, it is accessible if they don't have enough money. And
Severable liability.
severable liability. And what happens is if places go bankrupt, then your bill goes up because they can't pay. My point is, again, gang, for about $10,000, you need to decide, the security that buys or doesn't buy. There is no doubt, apples to apples, they're good policies. And one is significantly less expensive than the other. That's the only thing I would ask you to consider.
Great,
Tina?
thanks, I have a couple of things. It looks like if we were to drop our umbrella, which I think we've all discussed, it would be the difference between 59,000 and 84,000. So that's kind of a significant, oh no, is
Well,
that not
59
correct?
and
54. 77.
54 and
Okay.
65. It's the top number.
Well, we would have an umbrella option though, wouldn't we, Elizabeth? But is there any reason to think that we are at any higher risk than, say, the village in town of Tivoli?
I don't know. It's a smaller municipality. Adam ticked off a few of the statistics, Gina. No, I can't tell you what's gonna happen in Tivoli.
Right.
I price your insurance right on.
The other thing is, I think the other agency is 9% commission. Is that the same for you, and is there any room in that commission rate?
What is the full commission on this, 12?
Yeah, maybe average.
I believe it's
the whole
12.
thing is about
NYMER is definitely a reduced commission product. I'll get that for you exactly.
Okay,
I believe it varies, I'm not hesitating, I don't mind sharing it with you at all. It varies from line to line
okay,
on the policy,
okay.
all right?
Can you?
And excuse me, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
I have done that in the past on large accounts many times. Now whether,
Okay.
I don't remember if we've done that or not. I've done it in the past and would be happy to if they'll make a concession.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
The one thing that Brian Miles, the agent from Spain, he gave us a comparable rates on every town around us and the
Mhm, I
county
saw
and the
that.
limits that they carry. Why should we be with a 15 million, 30 million? We don't have our own police force, we have limited exposure. The county has a lower umbrella than we do. Red Hook, every town around us, we're the highest umbrella
Mhm.
of any town in Dutchess County.
Are Red Hook and Red Hook's with NYMER? The
Well,
Dutchess County?
nobody
Red
with
Hook has-
NYMER's gonna have these rates
Right.
because
I
NYMER
would say
is
that's a lot of-
too expensive when they
don't,
try
right.
to do that.
I mean, that's.
We can have that discussion. I would have been glad to have that discussion with you a couple of months ago. If you had said to me, where did these rates come from and why are we there? Then I would have dug back in the files and tried to find out why Ralph Ellis suggested and why the board accepted it and raised the rates that we had set. I can't tell you the rates are too high or too low.
I read his report from 2010 and there was no
Nothing.
monetary, there was
I
no
know.
monetary,
I
there was
understand
no, from him, there was no recommendation on umbrella limits. One thing he did say was that we might want to consider raising our deductible or
Which we
cutting
did.
our limits to lower our rates. So I think that there's a big difference between 2009 and 2010 and what happened with insurance and what's continuing to happen with costs going up 10, 12, 15% a year.
As I said, I would be happy to talk to you about lower limits. I supplied you with the quotes. I am waiting because last minute we realized that Selective didn't give us 1525. You can extrapolate that. If it's consistent, which I did this afternoon, we committed about 80,000, I think, Elizabeth, I think I came up with like 80,200 at 1525. And you can lower the limits. We're not fighting on that.
No,
You answered all my questions.
How many administrative hearing complaints have we had? Or have we had to pay out? With you.
I don't know of any.
We haven't had any.
I don't know of any.
And pollution coverage is something that we do have with you, so we should talk about the landfill. Just to speak to your argument of $1.75 per resident, that, we had to cut jobs, this year. And every department says, you know, for 50 cents more, for $1 more.
I can't argue with you, Elizabeth. I'm just pointing it out, honestly. Honestly, I sit where you do, and have on volunteer boards, and it's agonizing. I understand it. What we're trying to point out, forgive us if we were heavy-handed with it, what we're trying to point out, as Adam said, is the difference between insurance and fuel oil, or the salt for the roads, or something else.
No,
But there's a long tail to this decision, that's all.
So
And-
you honestly believe, and this is, I ask this sincerely, that selective is a better policy. You can't offer us NYMAR now.
Not,
You cannot offer it to us. You're comfortable in recommending selective, you think the coverage is as good as or better?
yes. I will tell you there will be instances where NYMER has better coverage, line by line, than selective might, and I will tell you there are some where selective will have better coverage than NYMER. We have the village with Trident. We moved them, okay, to Trident. We tried to get you guys a quote with Trident, and Trident said they would not be competitive. We went to Argo, Gold, Gladfelter, and they declined to quote because of losses.
What are our deductibles on this?
On our present policy?
Yeah,
On what line? On property?
yeah, property or,
I think what Ralph recommended. It's what was recommended in 2010, which I think is 2,500.
I would like to get a definitive answer on whether our lawsuit would have been covered, the $257,000 lawsuit would have been covered under NYMER.
well, Brian Miles said it would have been when he
Did-
presented to
yeah.
us.
Yeah, but when we were switching to workers' comp, I asked you about the assessment thing. And remember I said if there were big claims someplace, are we protected, or are we part of this pool and we're gonna get hit with increased liability, which is the way I interpreted what he was saying.
I think Greg was
And-
talking about general liability, not workman's comp.
I understand, but it's, the association is the same, the funding pool is the same, I believe.
Right.
And so my concern with that was that if somebody has a workers' comp negligence situation and it's big bucks, then we all have to pay on it. And you told me at
We're
the time
locked in, we are locked in for a year and a half. We do not have to pay anything more.
but are we incurring liability by being locked in? That's what I was concerned about.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay. I think we would be, because
I think
we're-
you need to get the answers to those questions. Because if it is in fact, Bruce, an assessable policy, then even after you leave it, you can get a bill for the time that you were in it for additional premium. That's the point that I was making about the local hospitals. And if I'm wrong, he'll tell you, and he'll tell you the truth, I'm sure.
Proportionally severable, that's what that means. If say Sandy roared on shore as a 3 and came up the Hudson Valley and hit every NYMER town from Manhattan to New York, or to Plattsburgh, and there was not enough money to rebuild every single building that was knocked down by Sandy, the government will step in and assess on a proportional basis to each of the policyholders for the time that they were in the reciprocal, the amount of money that it costs to make up that difference. That's what NYMER is. It is a whether or not you're willing to share that risk pool on a smaller basis. Selective spreads their risk out over a much larger basis and is protected by the state. NYMER is a small group of towns within New York State that have gotten together and pooled their resources. So what you agree to is to help each other in the event of a claim. That's kind of that's the mentality.
It's the essence
But
of
what you need
insurance.
to look at is the
Yep.
storms that are rolling up the coast at this point 2 years in a row. If that goes up the Hudson Valley, like they said, Spain has 40 municipalities between New York City and Albany, I think is the statistic they use, or something like that, in their captive region. You would be liable for whatever your proportion is of your premium to the total premium of NYMER. The government can assess you to an unlimited amount. The Board of Governors can assess you up to 10 times premium. It's the endorsement, I read it the other day out of the NYMER policy we have for Tivoli. It's right in there.
So that's our big issue with this general liability?
It's
Is
not
the
just general
exposure-
liability, it's property, it's anything, it is the policy as a whole, it is not specifically, typically, you could have liability issues for that, but it would, more than likely, an assessment like that wouldn't come from a couple of liability cases, it would come from a large property, I would think, more likely a large property where there were billions of dollars in property damage, not necessarily 10 million here, 10 million there on liability cases, but from a property perspective, it's the whole policy is assessable.
Any of their obligations as an insurance carrier that they cannot meet because they have not reserved sufficiently, they can go back to the subscribers. You're not policyholders, you are subscribers. When Selective goes broke, tough luck. They figured out their rates wrong, which by the way is one of the reasons their rates are higher.
Right, and the government's,
If they don't have enough money in the bank to pay their claims,
Got it.
they're done. They cannot come back to you and say, oops, we made the rates too low. When CRM, the trust, went to all of the businesses in the valley and said, here are your comp premiums, it was nirvana. It was wonderful. Their comp premiums were 30% lower than they'd ever paid. And now they're all getting bills and CRM is gone. And they're all getting bills from the state. Huge.
But CRM is not,
That's a trust,
it's,
but it's an accessible
it's several liabilities,
insurance
it's the same liability.
carrier. It's the same theory, that's all I'm saying. I'll give you a reciprocal, PRI, Physicians Reciprocal Insurance, is an insurance reciprocal for med-mal here in New York that is insolvent. They tried to get the rates up. As soon as they raised their rates, the state would stop them or the doctors would leave. Once the doctors leave, they don't have the cash flow to pay their premiums.
why
It's
is
a vicious cycle.
the New York Association of Towns recommending this so heavily?
They're involved with them heavily. Elizabeth, they believe in it. We're just making you aware of the fiduciary side of it. That's all. That's what I said. They believe in it. It's fine for them. And it's, whether you need these rates this high or not, I don't know, but that risk would still be there. Those are also two different issues. Again, I'm not trying to knock them. You're asking questions about that.
I have one other question about public officials' liability. Is that paid out if there's only a monetary loss? And does the deductible, do we pay the deductible even if we win or lose?
Do you know about the deductible on that one, Adam?
That was the one that, the deductible, the $5,000 deductible on the public officials was,
We have to pay it.
yeah, it only applies to the attorney fees. Yeah, it would apply to attorney fees, yes.
Yes.
So we pay it whether we win or lose?
With a deductible?
Yes.
Probably so. I want to look that up, Elizabeth, and make sure before I talk.
I mean, these are strengths to each one.
Yeah,
You know,
that's-
it's, you know,
Mhm.
it's a not a huge spread in money.
I think Joe, also, I went with you in 2010, I think, over this, and I think Joe did also
Yeah.
back then. I mean, he's not here, of course, but,
Yeah, we went a lot of back and forth with Joe.
With
I think
Joe,
2
yeah.
years ago, he was in the office quite a bit talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the ins and outs after everything with Robert.
right.
Just
And,
kind of answering questions, because Joe, as an attorney, understood some of it
yeah.
more than we do.
Well, he wants to go with NYMAR,
Yeah.
for what it's worth.
Well, I'd like to get his input on it, too.
I spoke with him.
Shoot out some of the things that we've mentioned to the agent in Putnam County. Ask them, make sure that we didn't misrepresent anything, okay? Give us some follow-up questions like the one that I just said that we could certainly find out for you. I know you have to make your decision soon.
Yeah.
We don't have to
we'll-
decide tonight?
Mm-mm.
You guys talked to Joe about it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
What, last meeting?
Talked to
I
him
just found out
yesterday.
today.
He called me last night.
Okay.
I just
Yeah.
spoke to him today.
How's he doing?
He's hurting.
He says it hurts like heck. Okay, so that's a good thing, we wanna ask about the, assessable trust and the
It's not a
reciprocity.
trust, it's a reciprocal, and make sure that it is, because I believe a reciprocal can convert to a non-assessable. I don't believe that NYMER has, but
So what do I wanna ask him? I wanna
Ask him to explain the several liability clause
ask
to
them,
you.
yeah.
Several
How that
li-
could affect you in the future if NYMER went insolvent. because of
Several
losses.
liability costs.
And you guys work on your commission wrestling that down a bit. Okay.
We will certainly do that. Absolutely.
That'd be helpful.
Well, so what would we go with, the 510 or?
I think I'm totally in agreement of lowering the umbrella.
I wouldn't go with lowering the umbrella. I think it doesn't
I think when
help the town.
We haven't
If we
budgeted
were-
for, we don't have the money in the budget line
Yeah,
for the,
well, let's look at it.
And
I
when
think,
we're higher than the county and all of the adjoining towns, it just seems like that's overkill.
Yeah. Well, I think we talked about this a couple years ago, made it clear, it was pretty clear that it was important that we had that coverage.
Honestly, we were not necessarily part of those discussions.
Yeah, what do you mean,
The consultant met with the board,
yeah, but you and I.
and then,
I
yeah,
went to
you
your-
and I
went to-
talked
went to
about
your
it, but-
office about it,
yeah.
Joe went to the office
and
individually,
then I was asked to get quotes at that level,
Yeah.
because
Tom,
I
if
believe we were below that at
if
that
we look
time.
at
Right.
health insurance, though, the
Right.
trends are changing. You know, we're going up to high deductibles now. In 2009, our deductibles weren't anywhere near what they are now.
Yeah,
Insurance keeps going up 12, 15% a year.
Everybody
So-
hates insurance.
yeah.
Well, you want it when you need it.
Just be, and again, I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to be negative, Elizabeth, just
No,
be
I
aware that the
understand.
deductible is at one side of the loss,
No,
and it's
I
contained.
get it, and this is
What
a
we're talking about is the other side of the loss that can't be contained.
Right.
And there, you may never need that much liability.
Right. What was the one
It's-
a
it's-
couple years ago when the 3-year-old fell off the high dive?
Mhm.
That's something that didn't turn into a big loss, and I know the high dive is gone, but you think about the exposure that you have
Mhm.
with the pool and the riverfront and stuff like that, there is
Right.
the opportunity for catastrophic incidents. And they may never happen, it probably won't, but I gotta tell you,
And I
when
will
it
also
does,
say, you don't wanna create deep pockets.
Mhm.
I alluded to the physician that's doing incorrect and wrong site surgeries. One of the issues that we have is one of the hospitals in our system did the fewest number of surgeries for that physician, and I'm selling us down the tubes here, buddy.
Right.
But we have the most insurance, and so when his practice goes broke, or the other hospital in town goes broke, you know where the court is gonna go? To the one with the deepest pockets. That can work for you and against you. So there's a fine line between adequately protecting yourself and creating deep pockets.
Mhm.
I have that conversation with people who come and ask me, where do you think your rate should be? Which again, I would always be and have been happy to have with you.
Do you have a recommendation? Is it, I mean, so I understand what you're saying. You have this coverage, then you're a target, in a sense.
Yeah,
Did you get a copy of that comparison between our town and all the other towns in the
Mhm.
county? Okay,
I saw it, yep,
okay.
yep, there was a vast difference.
Mhm.
But again, as I said to Elizabeth in one of my emails, that if you came to me and wanted to buy a Cadillac, and I only sell Chevys, I'm probably gonna tell you a Cadillac's too much car for you,
Mhm.
but I'll sell you one.
Right,
And
no,
I'll
I
sell you,
understand that, Greg.
So we have to decide what's the appropriate
Right.
level. And is 15-30, maybe in this day and age, it's too high, maybe it's not enough. It's a balancing act, Gina.
Mhm.
It's a balancing act between your obligation and responsibility that you take seriously to get that budget in, you know, as low as you can, and properly protect everybody. And if I stood here and said I could, you know, pick the magic number, I can't do it.
Right.
Could you talk a little bit more about the pollution coverage? And I mean, our problem right now is the water levels rising in the landfill.
Well, Elizabeth, that's a question for
yeah,
Nymer as
that's
well.
more of a
Yeah.
question for Nymer.
Pollution coverage.
No,
Yeah.
because it exists under our current coverage. We have an issue now under our
No,
business.
there's limited pollution coverage on the selective policy, and there's limited pollution on the NYMER policy. What I was saying is that I was reading the NYMER policy that the landfill is definitely not covered by that, and
Could you verify that?
we could find out about whether it would be covered on the selective policy. I can tell you it wouldn't be covered on the NYMER policy. 'Cause I was reading the NYMER policy the other day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
we're not
that's what
claiming
we'd
it
like to
is
know.
covered under the selective policy, I think is
Oh,
what
you're,
we're not claiming it is, and we'll
We'll find
verify
out.
that for you,
Yeah, that's
Elizabeth,
one of
but
our
I don't think that it is. And I'm saying,
And that's
we
why I
don't
was-
think it would be covered there either.
The
but-
point was, it's not, in
Please
my
verify
opinion, not a
that.
huge consideration, the pollution coverage, because there's not the coverage that you would expect to be there, so if it's not there in the selective policy, it's kind of a comparative point.
Yeah, but for us, it's a point.
For you,
Oh,
it's-
absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. If you got a favorable answer to that, that's gotta be an important consideration.
Right, so we could follow up on this, right? Just, what's your date of, and what's our need to change this? There's none.
It's not my, I don't know. I thought
I
it was
mean, I
January
think you can
first.
get these questions answered very
It's a
quickly, though,
one-month.
I would think.
We don't have another meeting. Shelley, when do we need to decide?
Our policy renews January 1st.
We'd have to have another meeting
By January 1st?
before January first?
I mean, how do we do this? We have to renew this policy, or?
Do we have a 30-day lead or something? You know how that works with insurance, that we have
Yeah,
a built-in 30-day window?
I'm sure Selective would, I don't think, Selective would have the option to enforce what's called a short rate penalty if you renew the policy and then cancel it right away. I doubt, I can't imagine they would levy the penalty. They have the right to, but most of the time, they understand. It's a 1/1, there's holiday, I mean, you know, again, if you went into February,
Mhm.
maybe, but if you came back the week after and said, look, we got the answers and we're not, they have the right to short rate the policy. They have the right to penalize you for renewing it and canceling it right away. Whether they would or not, I don't know. You've been with
Elizabeth,
them
I
for a
will
long
find
time.
out for you, or whoever you want me to, whether it renews automatically.
Okay, and
Oh,
if
it
that,
doesn't renew automatically.
No, I didn't think so.
It does
so
not
we'd
renew
have to
automatically.
renew it, but we could cancel it, and possibly they wouldn't,
Possibly they
Give
would
it the-
penalize you, possibly they would
what
not.
would the penalty be?
It's a percentage that goes on like a reducing sliding scale as you go further into the year. So what it would be off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you, but we could find
Okay.
out. if there's-
All right, that'd be good too. Okay.
But we should have, we were supposed to decide tonight what we wanted to do. This leaves us in I think, a bad place.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, we sort of had this special meeting to listen
Yeah.
to these guys.
Mhm.
You know, we were supposed to get this done in November.
Okay.
It's your call.
Well, I don't know, I think there are a few questions that we kind of do need to have answered that came out because of this presentation.
So I think we ought to renew tentatively and lower it to the rate we want.
Yeah,
I'm okay going to the 510 for now,
I am as well.
and it's only a $2,000, $2,000 to $3,000 stretch on our budget if we stay with it.
And if they work on their commission and get it down lower, but
Yeah, well,
Elizabeth,
that-
are you prepared to make a decision tonight?
Well, I think we have to.
And what
I mean,
about you, Tom?
I mean, I'd like information too. I would have to wait till the 14th of January. But,
We can ask Selective to see what their stance, I mean, find out what
That would
happens
be
if we
helpful,
renew.
Adam.
Shelley, can you give us
Not
any
wait to
insight
renew,
into
but
this?
See what they say. We can get a definite answer.
I think it's more, we can get the answers, I think it's more of a
Right.
procedural issue.
Well, what I'm saying is, we go with Selective, and then if we cancel, we cancel,
Mhm.
which is what you're saying.
Right,
Well-
Yeah.
that's,
So we're not, I don't wanna have a lapse in coverage.
I don't wanna have a lapse in coverage either. I don't think we have a choice. It's a $20,000 spread. Selective is $20,000 more for the $5 million, $10 million coverage.
That's a big difference, I think.
It's a big difference, but we have some questions. We don't have we don't have enough information.
Well, I think I agree, I think to me the big question is that severability clause, you know, I don't know what the right word is, but I really don't like being in a pool where I'm at risk for somebody else's problems. And that's how I don't know the right term.
no, that's good summary.
But see, that's what made me nervous about this, and that's where I am.
But that's what insurance is. That is what insurance is. And
Well, you're taking a risk, but it's a huge risk in this environment. That's the point, so.
well, the governor, the county supervisor, they all want everyone to pull together and pool resources now. And that is the coming way. That is how things are going to go. We're gonna have to join other communities and purchasing power, and even for medical insurance. So things are different than they were 5 years ago.
I still think we have enough information to make a switch.
I don't know how you folks work procedurally.
We don't know either.
That was not as sarcastic as it may sound. But from our point of view, you don't have to give us an answer tonight. So you
Well,
can
right.
tell us,
We-
you can
We
call.
need to meet and vote in public. We need to
You do.
discuss this and
You
vote in
Yes.
can't do
public.
like
No.
Right.
other boards where you empower them to, if the answer is this, we're going this way, and if the answer is that, we're going that way.
We
Well,
could, but
we could
it's,
make a, we could
I
make
don't know.
a, we could approve something based upon what we, if we knew what the answer was, you know, what the options were, but,
there's too many variables. It's
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to
No.
offer a solution to, probably to my detriment, but, you know, because the last thing I want you to do is to call Mayapack and find out that, no, in fact, it used to be severally liable, and it isn't anymore, and you made a decision tonight, and, you know, based on a misunderstanding or something like that. I would like you to hear it from them.
Okay.
so but you do need an answer from us tonight.
We don't.
Or we won't have any coverage, right?
No, we've got
No,
all
it
next week.
renews-
We have all next week, we could put in a bind order. and
We won't have a meeting until middle of January.
We would have
That's the
to
next
approve
meeting.
that
Yeah,
tonight.
And we have a
Yeah.
meeting on the
Unless we
set,
have
what is our
another
next
meeting.
14th, on the 14th of January. That's the second Monday of the
Yeah,
month.
it's too
Well, then I
late.
think
All right.
Bruce's suggestion makes, well, I don't know about the penalty, that's
Right.
Well, we,
we can't, no, we can't find out till tomorrow.
I mean, a pro rata cancellation would be acceptable.
If they would accept the
Can't
pro rata
guarantee that they would
cancellation,
do
we
a
can't
pro
guarantee a
rata.
pro rata cancellation, but.
Can't tell them that now. A pro rata, there's two types of cancellations, as I said, there's a short rate penalty cancellation and a pro rata cancellation. And in a pro rata cancellation, they take your premium divided by 365 days. So if you kept it 14 extra days, it would be 14 times the daily rate, and they
Got it.
say thank you and goodbye. The short rate penalty, which many companies have moved away from, but I gotta tell you, on larger policies, they try and retain short rate policy, you know, like a bank with penalties.
What was the option with Spain if you approved that tonight and then wanted to go back? What was the?
We didn't ask them.
I mean, and the other thing, and again, I wanna be fair with you guys, I always have been. Whatever the short rate penalty is, if you feel that the difference is $20,000 in premium, and that's what that paper says,
Mhm.
it's gonna be way less than $20,000.
Mhm.
So, if you got an answer from them that said, oh, we should've gone with NYMER, and we, on the 14th, you get a penalty, and
Right.
go to NYMER,
It's just that
you'd still be saving.
the 20,000 hertz, the 10,000 hertz.
Yeah.
You know, we
It all-
laid
yeah.
off 2 people next year. What do you wanna do?
Me, I would stay with selective, but I'm more for the higher coverage too. So I don't like the exposure. I think we've talked
It's
about it.
overkill.
We've talked about it a couple years ago, and I don't know. I like the coverage for the town. That's my feeling on it. So, anyways, that's just me.
Bruce?
If we do the 5-10, we could always up at any time, as long as there's no penalty in that.
No,
Okay.
no.
And you could lower the 1530, if you back it with 1530 and decide you wanna go to 510, you can lower that coverage as well during the policy period.
Right.
Well, I think it's hard to swallow the $20,000 difference. That's a difficult one for me. So, if I don't know how much of your commission that entails.
Very little. Trust me, that is way more than my,
19,000,
that is way more than my total commission.
You know, I don't know. It's a crapshoot and a gamble, and it always is.
Uh-huh.
It always is, even with healthcare coverage. Do we know, okay, so did Nymer say that our legal costs would have been covered?
Yes,
Because that's a huge difference to me.
well, that's done, that's
It's
over.
$250,000.
Told us at our meeting,
Mhm.
we asked him. I'm more comfortable going with the selective for the lower liability. We don't have, for the lower umbrella limits, we don't have questions asked. Greg raises a good point about our exposure with the severability clause, and, you know, if it were me and my family, I could take a risk, but for the town, it's a bigger responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so what do you guys want to do?
Well, if we go with the 1020, it's more than we budgeted, but it's still a savings over this
Did
year.
I say 1020 or 510?
510, I wanna go with 510. I'll stay with selective if we can lower the umbrella to 510.
Tom's point is, that's
We-
probably not enough.
We can always up it, and what is not enough based on?
It's certainly comparable to what other towns are paying.
Yeah,
And we can
To
always
what
up
other
it.
towns have.
I'm okay
Yes.
with that.
Yes, exactly,
I'm
what
okay with that,
coverage they
but
have.
we should have a discussion about upping it in the future. We should pick something tonight. If we wanna talk about upping it, then we should talk about that in the future. I think Joe should be a part of that, cause he was a part of that discussion 2 years
Yeah.
ago, and he understood it back then as I understood it, so.
He
He's
is
in favor of-
adamant about wanting the lowest liability.
He wasn't that way 2 years ago.
He
as
was
I
at
am-
our last meeting, and he was on
He
the
told me
phone, yeah.
today
Well, you guys had
that
your
he
own
was,
discussion
but that's
with him,
not, I know,
but we need
and
to
I
have
don't
a-
wanna speak for Joe.
Right, we're gonna
I
have
can't
him
do
at a town board meeting and talk about it. Or,
I mean,
wanna
I'm
talk about
not
it with him.
comfortable with the exposure, under the several liability, you know, if that's, something that NYMER puts us at risk for, I'm not comfortable with it.
Do you have his cell phone? Do you
Yeah, I've
have
got
it?
everything.
Call him.
I'm not gonna call him right
Okay,
now. Yeah, I think,
Take a,
I
take a,
think
take a
we're
break and call
comfortable,
him and,
I think we're comfortable, you know, I'm comfortable with renewing it, and, you know, we needed to do this earlier and we didn't, and now we're up against a time limit, and it's unfortunate.
Alright, so let's go to the 510.
Okay,
Motion.
second?
any discussion on, staying with selective, I understand, at the 5 million, 10 million coverage umbrella option. That's, as I understand it, right?
Yes,
Okay, any discussion on that?
And final cost to be determined? Okay,
Uh,
thank you.
And then, with this, we'll, continue to talk about, upping the options for the future, but at least we're looking into something for the
and
upcoming
looking at
year.
whether or not NYMER has, what our exposure is under the several liability.
Right,
But it's a $20,000 difference, and it's over our budgeted amount, as long as we're all aware of that.
okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, it's so moved. Okay.
Thank you.
Tom,
And
are you available tomorrow?
obviously,
Yeah.
we'll get the
I
answers
need a
to those
signature,
questions.
we'll need a signature from you to lower
Yeah.
those.
Come January,
Just have
I'll,
them on
if
file.
I'll stop by.
Okay.
Great,
they prove us inaccurate, we'll get you the best
That's great.
cancellation deal that we can.
that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks.
For the rate cows it is.
Okay,
You know, it made the most sense with the information we know. Even it is.
so we have a couple of items for business before the board, a resolution approving abstract 12B vouchers 12 V1289 through V1349, the amount of $75,849.27. Motion and second.
Motion.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
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 Aye opposed, so moved. Item 2 for action is resolution to approve the preliminary capital projects abstracts for $143.75. Motion and second.
Motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed?
No.
No.
Four.
That's so moved. Item 3 is a resolution approving the budget transfers and amendments as described in tab 5. Motion and second, first of all.
Motion.
Second.
A second.
Any discussion on that?
No.
Okay.
All in favor, aye.
Good.
Aye.
So moved. Item 4 is a motion to approve the Columbia Green contract, and that's for the SPCA Humane Society contract. Motion and second?
Motion?
A second? Any discussion?
I just held that over. I wanted to compare it and check pricing and things like that, and it's basically identical to what we've had.
So you're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they do a good job, and they're the best price that we can find.
Great. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is so moved. Item 5 is a resolution reappointing Michael Trimble to the planning board and as the chair. And I know we may have to redo this after the first during a reorg. Did you get that? And I know we had this issue a couple of years ago, but if we do, we will. Anyways, they have some meetings before our reorg, so we'll motion and approve that. Motion and second that.
Motion?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
I'm in a huge eye, and I just want to give Michael Trimble a shout out, because I think he holds a lot of things together for us and does a terrific job on the planning board.
Second.
So all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you for
That's all.
indulging me.
That's so moved. Item 6, and similarly, is to reappoint Melody Moore as the vice chair of the planning board. Motion and second.
Motion.
Second?
Likewise, she does a fabulous job for us, as you said about Michael. And so all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. Item 7 is a resolution authorizing to hire the highway, authorizing hire at the highway department. And a motion and second,
Motion?
Second.
and that would be for the secretary to the highway superintendent.
I have a question, though, about that. Did we, should we have renoticed that, Kathy?
I don't think so because of the time frame. I don't think it was necessary. We had this happen, and I was basing that on legal advice from the couple of years ago. We had similar because of the time period. I only went off applicants to the first notice anyway, so it didn't open or give an advantage or anybody to another pool. I went off of the responses to the first round of applications within a 3-month time frame. So I think we're good.
Okay.
Okay.
Or 4-month time frame.
Any discussion on that? All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. Item 8 is a resolution approving the general liability insurance contract, as we already did, right? Okay. Items for discussion and possible action. We have the cemetery committee here, and we have our chairperson.
It's me, Suzanne
Suzanne
Kelly,
Kelly.
Cemetery Committee Chair. We have two items. The first one is the mausoleum plan that we've been trying to get established for some time now. That is part of a larger beautification plan for the Grassmere section that has included the tree planting plan, which was established in 2008, in part by Meg Crawford. I think we talked about that last year. Anyway, this is sort of an integral part of that. There's been a lot of talk and rehashing of this plan for some time now, but we'd like to get something passed, hopefully at the next meeting. We have a map in January. I just wanted to bring it to your attention now so you know all the details of it. We have a sort of a working map, it's not finalized yet. I'll have that for you at the next meeting that will point out where the possible mausoleum locations will go. But as you can see here, we would like to do a couple of things. To limit the total number of mausoleums in this Grassmere section, with the goal of making the cemetery more sort of park-like and more rural cemetery-like, more like the old cemetery. That's the ultimate goal. To limit the size of the mausoleums, which we are sort of still determining what that would be, and that the cemetery would be able to designate the spots of where those mausoleums would go, rather than just having it sort of a free-for-all, which is what we have right now. So having more of a plan around that. And so in order to realize that, as you can see on here, this will require sort of blocking off some sections where trees will actually go, so we can create sort of tree groves. So this has to work in conjunction with the tree planting plan, which has already been established, and the tree planting plan is laid over this mausoleum plan. So Meg Crawford was great enough to do that for us. So that's basically it, and we want to do this in conjunction with a memorial tree program that we're trying to establish, where people would actually purchase trees and the planting of the trees and pay for that cost. So, so that's
that.
yeah. So that's
Suzanne, can I ask you a question
Yeah.
about the mausoleums?
yeah.
Are entire bodies in them?
Yes.
So they are?
Yeah.
It's not just little urns? I suppose it could be
No,
urns,
it's whole
but
body,
it's-
whole body
okay.
mausoleums.
Why,
Yeah,
why do we want mausoleums?
it's a good question. That's a good question. It's a good question.
I mean, why have them?
Yeah, because
Because you
people.
have to
Isn't it
mow
a-
around them and
But
stuff,
isn't
right?
it anachronistic, or I mean, if we're going towards, we have a green
Yeah.
cemetery and we want our cemetery to be more park-like, I mean, how was the plan, who came up with the plan, and how was it decided that we were going, and why are we offering mausoleums?
Well, we're not offering mausoleums. We have mausoleums there already, and this is a way to sort of curb and control the amount of mausoleums that go, but also recognize that there are people in the community that may want mausoleums. For instance, there were just 4 plots for mausoleum sections purchased recently. That's 4. There's only 4 in there right now, so that's now we have a total of 8. So this is sort of in, not completely in reaction to that, but in terms of addressing the number of mausoleums that ultimately we would like to see in the space and where they would be sited. So it's really a design issue. It's really about demand. So your question about, do we want mausoleums? You know, as a community, this is a larger question, but there are people that want mausoleums.
Right,
Yeah.
but do we, as, I know people may
Yeah.
want them, but do we, and why?
Well, there was never anything prohibiting mausoleums.
That's right.
And there was no plan not to have them. But I think that, as I understand, the committee's trying to control that now and put them in a reasonable spot so that it remains park-like and not be so random
Mausoleum
or
row.
whatever.
Should
Right.
we consider not having them at all?
Well, it's up to the,
I mean, that's something that you all can talk about. We've certainly had lots of discussions in our committee about this, and there's not consensus about it, I'll tell you that.
there are
So-
mausoleums in the old part.
There are,
but,
and it might be useful to actually go for a site visit to see how those mausoleums are sited and how, when they're sort of put in certain areas and they're in scale with the trees that are above them, they don't seem to stand out like a little village. So it might be useful for any of you who might want to go on a site visit to the cemetery to see what you think about that for the future planning of the Grassmere section. It
Yeah,
may
I mean,
help
I've
to answer.
certainly been to the cemetery, but I would love to go with an eye to that and thinking, is this something
Yeah.
that we want for a new section?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, well, we could set that up before the next meeting. That'd be great. I'd be happy to do that.
I've been there too many times.
Same as
Bruce
me.
knows the cemetery
Yeah.
too well.
Have you been through the zoning and building department? And they're all fine with all your plans and everything?
Well, there's mausoleums already there.
But just so, with our comprehensive plan, we said we're gonna follow all the rules for everything. So this is one of those things where we have to follow those rules. So you might wanna just have them
Submit the
check
plan.
everything.
Oh, I see what
The
you're
plan.
saying.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
Submit the map to them as well,
Yes. Okay.
proposal.
Yeah. So I mean, would folks like to go on a site visit? I can set that up before the before the next meeting. Okay, great. Yeah. So we can do that, and then maybe you all can have a conversation. I mean, ultimately, it's your decision. Clearly.
I think I have a sense of where they're proposed.
Yeah.
But the 4 that were recently purchased,
They're along the tree line, the
They
Grassmere
are.
tree line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why
Why do people, what is the appeal of a mausoleum for people? Is it just a personal preference or a?
Some people don't like to be underground.
Right, that's what I've heard.
That's the biggest thing, I think.
And people don't wanna be in.
And also, some people, I think it's a source of pride.
It is, yeah.
How many, can I ask please, how many internments can be done in a mausoleum?
They're all different sizes. Some of them that are there have about 2. The largest one there, I think, fits maybe 12.
Yeah,
So
12.
it could be the idea of a family
Yes.
area as well?
Yeah.
And doesn't it save space if they're on top of each compartment's on top
Well,
of each other?
it saves space this way, yeah, but there's still the airspace.
Right. but-
Yeah, right. I mean, we are trying to not have it look like a little town, you know, because a bunch of little buildings.
So you would limit the, are you decided on offering them?
Well, we have decided that we feel like the right thing to do is to offer, to cap the number and to still offer a few more spaces to
To
mausoleums.
cap the number and cap the size
And
and
to
the
cap the
height?
size and where they would go, so that they
Okay.
would be to scale in terms of where we would plant trees.
Yeah, I think that's about as good as you could do.
Yeah, I think that eliminating them would be really hard, and
Right.
maybe not in keeping with what we would want to offer to the community, yeah. So that sounding good? All
Yeah,
right, right
sounds
on.
great.
All right, wonderful. So that will be brought up next time. I'll have the map for you. We'll go on a site visit.
Should we set a date for the site visit now, or you wanna wait?
Sure.
I don't have my phone with me tonight.
Am I the only one going, or?
No, I'm going.
How about the
Will you
Thursday?
take outsiders?
Yes, please. Yeah. The Thursday after the week of the 9th of January,
17th?
or
Oh, that's the 10th.
the 10th. How about the 10th?
That's good for me.
Good.
Just email me
Well,
if you would, or one of you.
I will.
Mine isn't opening. Let's do it via email.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Suzanne.
One more issue. This has to do with, it's listed here as DSS burial, Department of Social Services. This actually came up through Chris Chesney a couple of times, I think back in 2003 when I wasn't on the committee. He had proposed, and I think he was on the cemetery committee at that time, that the Grassmere section of the cemetery have what he wanted to be designated a pauper section. The committee today is against that idea. We do not want to have a separate section that is set aside for those who are on DSS. There are this came up via Chris Chesney, because there are 2 cemeteries in the area where those funerals that are paid for DSS, those folks are buried. One's in New Paltz and one is at the Red Church. This is kind of a source of revenue for cemeteries to be able to do this, and he thought that this would be a good source of revenue for our cemetery, but we're not interested in a committee doing that because we're not really interested in just filling up the cemetery. We also don't think ethically in terms of like setting aside a section. However, having said that, I do think that we have a responsibility to abide by the DSS rules for people who live in our town and for family members of people who live in our town, and I don't know if we have to set aside a separate DSS provision or to pass a resolution or something like that. It may already be built into the law. I have some old paperwork from 10 years ago from the committee that might answer some of those questions. If you want to look at that, I don't know if it's still relevant to today, but.
Is that a question for our attorney?
Well, luckily, we have an attorney on the committee who is pretty sharp.
There you
with it. Well,
Oh, of course.
could.
Yeah,
Um,
Nikki, yeah.
Well, would the committee want to recommend something, or?
I mean,
want
I would
to-
just, I would be comfortable just passing a resolution that said that, you know, for those folks who are being paid through DSS, what this means, it would be a reduced fee,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
That we would be willing to accept that reduced fee for burial anywhere in the cemetery, not a separate section.
We don't wanna,
Right,
I
and,
agree.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, we could put our own parts on it, like could be a town resident or something like that. I mean, that's something that I think we have an option to do. I don't think there's anything prohibiting us from doing that. That would.
No.
I don't know.
what do we do now?
There's nothing.
There's nothing.
These guys are just picking up the slack that's been dropped over the years.
Can I have a Fox mausoleum paid for by DSS?
Yeah,
No
like, that probably
mausoleums.
wouldn't work out.
Place for a little ice in the.
So, what should we do with this? Should I write something
We
up
should
and
write
try
a
to pass it next
resolution,
time?
I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
This is the first
I like the idea of not having it be separate. They're part of our community. They should be part of our
Yeah,
cemetery.
it's really just a matter of the reduced fee and recognizing.
What is the reduced fee?
I think it's
What-
700, DSS offers $750, and that's below what the plots are now, so.
I think that's fine, but we don't wanna open it up as a moneymaker
No.
to,
No.
right, exactly.
No.
I agree with that.
I mean, yeah, and can we say Rhinebeck residents only?
I don't
And families,
Yeah, is there any-
Rhinebeck
there's-
residents maybe.
I don't think there's any issue with that. I mean, that's probably the one issue we should follow up on to see if,
We can do that, I think we
Yeah.
have the authority
okay.
to do that, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds great, I need to see a little bit more information.
Okay.
You know, like some guidelines.
And maybe just a number of plots recommended by the committee, I guess, right?
Okay.
To say.
Okay,
Yeah, I think.
good.
Good.
Great.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Suzanne.
so all the other items we did wrap up with the committee that we approved with the, I think that was October, right, Suzanne, that we had approved?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, no,
What did I do?
no, I'm sorry, we had approved items in October, I think, that were all followed through on between
We did,
the stairway and.
yep, everything's been passed with
the
that.
cement mixer, all that stuff.
Yep,
so-
and all that's either happened or is in
Right.
progress happening, yep. Great.
Good, thanks a lot. All right, so there's nothing else on our agenda for discussion or action, but we do want to open the floor to public
I had
comment.
sent an email requesting an item for discussion.
So you can step up and, yep.
Thank you. During the budget discussions, we had talked about the potential purchase of a used paver for the highway department for various reasons. That it would help us with some efficiencies, it would give us the opportunity to do some more work in-house as opposed to having outsourced rental costs for equipment when we do some things. So we did have that discussion and talk about it. I haven't brought forth a proposal because although the paver is identified and ready for purchase, we have not been able to find an appropriate trailer, which we need in order to make this happen. But we do think that we will eventually be able to locate an appropriate one, but it may not be until the spring. However, waiting to make the whole purchase in the spring presents some problems for us because now is the optimal time for us to actually, if we are gonna go through this, have the paver, because we will have an opportunity to do the work on the paper that needs to happen in refurbishing it over the winter. We could bring it in and the mechanic could work on that, and when we have some time, something that we can put our crew on. So it's the right time for a project like that, number one, and number two, if the paver gets snowed in and we wanted to buy it in February, we probably won't be able to get it. We won't be able to get it out, it will literally be snowed in and packed in where it is, as well as number three, it'll be exposed to the elements over the winter, and possibly adding to further deterioration, which we wouldn't wanna see happen either. The paver itself is a cost of $1,500, and we're estimating that we're gonna need about $1,000 in parts to put into it. So what I'm suggesting is if you want to proceed with this idea, as we have discussed, that we do authorize the purchase of the paver now, and then we just need to talk about which way, there are a couple of financial ways to do that. And that we, with the understanding though that it's not good to us without a trailer, so that's gonna need to be a necessary purchase down the road, probably in the spring.
I brought up this is like that book, if you give a mouse a cookie and it just snowballs. And my only issue with this, I love the price. I think it's obvious that it's gonna pay for itself very quickly. My only issue is that we worked really hard on the capital improvement plan, and
Which
of
we're
all
not
of the
down with,
things.
we're not done with it, we have to pick
Right.
it up again.
And of all of the equipment in the highway department, the paver wasn't even on there. So there are many pieces of equipment that are big that we're gonna have to get down the road, if not sooner. And then we're adding this in addition, that's gonna also entail a trailer, which wasn't on our plan. So that's my only issue with it, but I think the price is excellent. I think we're gonna get our money's worth out of it, but, so I'm gonna support it, but it's
When did you send the email?
today or
This
yesterday.
morning. Sorry, mine wasn't really focused on the meeting date change and everything, so I'm sorry I didn't get that to you more in advance.
I'm taking this as a courtesy because it's under your clip for buying equipment.
Right.
Well, that was
So
one of the questions.
it is, right? you're different than everybody else, so
Yes,
you're
I
under
believe that it is as
So
well.
if
but
you
I-
hold to that price, then you have the authorization to buy it anyway, you don't need us to do that. The only gets it dicey when we get back to the trailer.
Right.
And
Right,
I think we need the trailer,
the dock and other stuff.
yeah, so, you know, I'm fine with this, but I don't think we need to do anything. I think Kathy's authorized to buy it.
Well, you're right, and thank you for recognizing that, but also, there's $30,000 in the equipment line for the 2012 budget, but the understanding was that that money would transfer into the capital fund, so that purchase is $1,500, you're right, the money is there, the authorization is kind of implicit, but there was an understanding that there would be the $30,000 transferred over, so it reduces that. So yes, as a courtesy, absolutely, I do think it's something we all need to talk about and be on the same page with. I wouldn't want to proceed without you guys.
When are we closing the books for the year?
I'm closing mine tomorrow.
Well, I mean, last year it
Not
was
really,
April, right?
Right, you guys, in that one policy that you passed, I believe the deadline was sometime like mid-February.
Okay, so we have time in January to move money around if we need to, so, you know, okay.
We're gonna have to move that 30,000 over to the capital.
Right, and there's other things.
Oh, that would happen after, yeah, I was only talking about for me writing a purchase order, because I'm not really, Christmas week is gonna be iffy.
You can't give it to them as a Christmas present, that's not fair.
No. A big red bow. So, but again, it's something I just wouldn't wanna proceed with without, us all.
Okay,
Heinz, what do you think about this in terms of the capital plan?
I think it is a good thing to do. The only thing is that the money that you're talking about was probably earmarked for a truck that you wanted to buy.
Well, it was earmarked to go into the capital fund, which will buy, the necessary, so it's reducing that. But there'll also be, we're talking, about additional transfers to go into capital as well, beyond that 30. And that'll happen after the first of the year when we have more closeout numbers and.
But to Gina's point, you have to buy, you wanna buy the trailer, you have to buy a trailer, you have to store the trailer someplace. So where would you store it?
At our facility,
So you have to even do that.
we can make that happen. A trailer,
It's just an equipment trailer, it's meant to be
Yeah, I know.
outside.
it's a little easier because we do have the outside bays on the side of the salt shed, and we have stuff there that hangs, and a trailer can go under. So something like that that's low, we could probably make room for. A truck, we would not have room for because it would
Bruce,
take the height issue.
Are you saying, you brought this up with the docks, are you saying we could use this for the docks?
the trailer to get the
Is that
docks
true?
out.
Yes, well, the trailer that we are saying, that we've identified, we're looking at like a 10-ton capacity trailer. And that would be sufficient. The trailer that we have now is not anywhere near that. But this is something that could move that heavier equipment and be used for that.
And do we have the other equipment to get the docks onto the trailer?
That's what we have anyway, we have
Yes.
our loader.
So how come, the only reason why the highway department doesn't do it is because we don't have a trailer?
Yeah, they transport the docks, I guess, from the dock up to the rec park, right?
Yeah, we used to take them to the highway garage, now we're storing them at the rec park.
So,
And we use 2 backhoes, that's the thing.
It's the transport itself.
Yeah, and we get-
You've been renting from Decker, the trailer?
Well, he
He's been
does the
doing the whole
movement, we get Bobby gets the state employees to do the work
Right.
for free.
so this is something we can move in-house now?
Yeah, once we get the equipment.
Sounds good.
Okay,
And it's,
So, we're
the
good?
trailer's good too, it's like we rent equipment, I rent a small excavator, I gotta pay $150 for delivery, and then they come over, pick it up, take it back, it's another $150, we can pick it up at this trailer.
Yeah, that's true.
How much was it?
And also, if we rented an excavator for a week, we don't have the capacity to move it between sites. We rent it for one job because they have to move it. We would now be able to maybe schedule something and move that excavator to multiple sites. So, I mean, it's a lot of good reasons, but Gina's absolutely right, that it's another piece of equipment. And the capital plan that was done was really only dealing with, originally back when I started it years ago myself, it was a replacement plan. So no new wish list equipment, it's not on there.
How much is the trailer gonna cost?
5,000.
Around 5,000. I saw one today. It's not right for us because of location and transport. But I saw one today that may or may not, depending on if it were viewed in person, it was 4,500 that, you know, but it's down in Pennsylvania and it's probably not.
Where in Pennsylvania? Anywhere fun.
You're going?
Syracuse.
Yeah.
I think it's like Greencastle, Pennsylvania.
The guy, you probably know Mark Trovey, I think he's in Port Jervis. He buys old equipment and sells it, and he exports some of it. You might wanna call him, he's got a website too, and he might be able to, I don't know if Port Jervis is too far for you, but, he might be able to locate one in your price range.
I'm gonna ask Bob if he'll look at that
Yeah.
tomorrow.
It's, I think it's Trovei.
Yeah,
He's in
yeah.
Port Jervis.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at quite a few of them, I mean, they're either junk or
Right.
Yeah.
expensive.
He got all excited. He was like, I found it. He came, he was like, all right, it's falling apart.
This guy will find them for you, so, you
You
know.
think we'll be able to find one, that it won't be, redundant?
Redundant? How
You know,
redundant?
buying the paver and not being able to find a.
No, I think we'll be able to find one. I think more will actually come on the market probably in the spring. You know, I think, Bob, you're gonna have to
I
give some
just don't
guidance
wanna
on
be in
that.
a hurry to find it, you know, to buy something that's not right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is we are in a hurry to buy the paver for the reasons I outlined.
Yeah, I would like to get.
Are we going into executive session?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Alright. So, we have executive section requests on here, I don't know what it's about, but,
They're just there.
not there, so we're not
Oh,
gonna go
good.
into executive session, so. Any further public comment?
Yeah, can I talk about something quick?
I have one thing too, I just wanna bring up.
I'm here to talk about the Thompson Mazzarella Park. And as you all know, the town and village line goes right to the middle of the park, right here. In case you don't know,
Oh, the other way, right?
right here,
Okay.
that's the line. So this side's the village, this side is the town. This side's the village, this side is the town. So, we've developed an intermunicipal agreement as we are developing the park to avoid duplication of costs such as lawyers' fees, engineering fees. We have both been working together, the town and the village, and we came up with an agreement. Now, there was just one thing that we just changed. Now, did you get a copy today, Bruce, of the new agreement?
Jim stopped by my house, I made the change, Tom signed it, John's taking it over to Jim tomorrow.
Okay. That's what I was here for, just to see if you got the change.
That's with respect to
Okay.
garbage, right?
What's that?
With respect to.
Yes, with
Yeah.
garbage.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're all set. Now,
Yep.
we'll approve it at our next meeting.
When's your
Yeah.
meeting next, this month or next month?
January 8th or 9th.
Yeah, the second Tuesday.
Second Tuesday?
My understanding was you conditionally approved it based on this change.
Well, we wanted to make sure that you guys approved it, that you saw the change.
Oh, so you didn't conditionally approve it?
Yeah, we conditionally approved it.
Okay, then, that means he can sign it now. That's my understanding.
I believe so.
So,
But there's no rush.
there is a rush because of the 10-day noticing for the planning board meeting with the village and the town,
Which is the 7th, or the 7th, yeah.
right? We wanna be able to do the joint board, so your guys couldn't do it this time because we didn't have the agreement in place.
Right.
So we do wanna rush to get it through.
Okay.
My recollection is that it was done conditionally.
Well,
Yeah.
do we need to approve it as a board, even if
Tom
Tom
needs
signed
to
it?
sign it.
Tom did sign it.
We approved the condition.
Oh, we did, okay, good,
Yeah.
all right. And I saw the change, it was fine.
Okay.
We can get back with you tomorrow.
Yeah. So the planning board meeting is the 7th?
I believe so,
Yeah,
that's
the
why we.
7th is a Sunday, right?
well,
No,
wait,
7th's a Monday,
The
Tuesday,
7th is a Monday?
yeah, but it's the first
Then
Monday.
ours is on the 8th. We have
Yeah,
a
yours
meeting
is on the 8th, but the first is on a Tuesday, so yours actually is on the 8th, so I don't think, I think the planning board is the 7th.
planning board is the 7th,
Yeah,
that's why we
yeah, so,
approved Mike.
just so you guys know,
Okay.
you might need us, if you guys are, I mean, we signed
We
it.
conditionally approved it last
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Good.
everything's good. Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas,
Thanks,
everyone.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, yeah.
I just have one other thing unless.
Go ahead.
We got a letter from Marcus Molinaro, our county executive. The budget is passed. This is important to us because he's upped the block grants from 1 million to 2 million.
Oh, wow, good.
And there are four areas we can go after, and we should all look at this. They'll be up on the county website in mid-January. Consolidation, shared services, intergovernment efficiencies, and economic development. I talked to him. I'm going to be going after a grant for our tech initiative under the intermunicipal efficiencies and the economic development.
I'm gonna be going after one for shared services and government efficiency.
For whatever it's worth, I think that making some of the noise about the cutting the sales tax, the 70 municipalities that passed a resolution, I think it had some effect because he is going to revisit the formula in 2014. I think we should continue to put pressure on him and try and get our money back. You know, it's Rhinebeck, Red Hook, Beekman, Stamford, the city of Poughkeepsie, Pine Plains, and Dover. He's working on an agreement with Beacon and Poughkeepsie, as you know, that the cities need to fall in line with the agreement of sales tax before anything can happen with the towns. I think we need to keep being in contact with him and pushing towards getting our revenue back. It was an illegal action.
So even though he's announcing that he's increasing that grant money up to 2 million,
He found another million for that.
he found another
Even though
million, but already, I've heard that 850,000 of that is already earmarked.
We're not sure, but that's some word. We don't know. Let's see how the money splits out. But in this letter, he also implores us not to take a lawsuit. We could actually sue the county for our money for this year because it was illegally taken under section 1262 of the tax code. They didn't give us 6 months notice and he didn't pass a local law. It might not be in our best interest to sue, and he doesn't want us to. I think we need to
But it wasn't done properly.
It wasn't done properly, and we need to keep pressure on him to try and get our sales tax money back. Another point is that the election costs seem to be in question because under the Office of the State Controller, Section 288, it's not proper with New York County law to have election costs be a budget item in town budgets. So it might have been something they should have had to have been paying for all along anyway. So it's not bleak for us. There's some money to go after, and I will keep in contact with him to try and get our sales tax back in the shares when it goes above the $25 million point.
Great.
That's it.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Well, let me say, we want to, on behalf of the community of Rhinebeck, we want to recognize the tragedies in Connecticut, and we want to offer our support to Newtown and the people of Shady Beach, Shady what?
Sandy Hook.
Sandy Hook, sorry, Sandy Hook. If you've heard, the president's going to appoint a commission to relook at gun control, and we should, we'll all support whatever happens with that, at least represent our communities to support or not to support that. So he's looking to get community support throughout the country, so we'll keep our eyes on that, and be that said, it's enough.
Related to that, can I just say that there is going to be a march on Washington over President's Weekend, and I think there's going to be a group from this area that are going to try and go. And I talked to Officer Pete Dunn today, and he's reaching out to Darren Forbes about maybe pulling together a gun turn-in for people to turn in firearms. They don't have enough storage space, but they could maybe do it at the State Troopers Barracks. And we might try and do that in February, and we're gonna reach out to Red Hook and other communities to see if they would like to do that as well.
All right, motion to adjourn.
We did
Sure.
that.
Thank
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, so moved.